What is up? Gosh, I've missed you guys. Took a couple weeks off, but welcome to MYFI. Glad you're here. Got a great show today. My friend, my good friend Jonathan Maloney is on the show. He's a graphic designer, art director, digital designer, all the things. Creative dude, loves music, and we had a great conversation. But wherever you're at, hit subscribe. Please subscribe to the podcast, Apple Music, YouTube, wherever you're at. It's awesome. You get all the updates, the notifications, all the things, so you know when we're dropping new episodes. And we are back. We got some great guests lined up to finish 2022, so you're not going to want to miss it. And make sure that you're following MYFI on socials everywhere, too. It's just at MYFI Podcast, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all the things. So just make sure you're doing it, okay? Make sure you're following, subscribing. And check out the website, myfipodcast.com. You can get links to stuff. There you can watch the episodes. We did some updating over there. You can listen online, right there as well, if that's your preferred method. But check it out, myfipodcast.com. Let's get into it. All right, we are back. Took a couple weeks off, just chilling. Had a great episode with Todd Kearns a couple of weeks ago. If you haven't, go catch that and catch up. On the show, we were dropping a lot of episodes there and had a lot of fun. A lot of people. Got another good one for you today. Super excited about it. And my friend Jonathan, who's on the show, is a really good friend. We don't live far from each other here. We work together. Jonathan is a designer and art director at 12 Stone Church, which is right outside of Atlanta where we live. He also does a lot of design work, digital design stuff for nonprofits and businesses and bands. He's worked with John Nolan from Taking Back Sunday. He's worked with a band called Becoming the Archetype, which we had Jason Wisdom from that band on an earlier episode. And Jonathan just loves music. It's gonna be great. We're gonna get into it in just a minute, but it got me thinking because he does design stuff about record art and record covers. And so I pulled a handful of albums and just want to talk real quick about some of my favorite record covers, record art of all time. So I'm going to grab them here. And if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify video or something, I'm going to hold these up and talk about them just a little bit. And I'm talking in, I don't know, they're not in really any order, but they're fun. So this first record, I've actually featured this as a record of the week before. This is a band from Sweden called Deadlord, and the album is called Surrender. Ironically, Jonathan sent me this record as it was like right at the beginning of the quarantine deal, and he sent me this record to show me the record art, actually. And I thought he sent it to me because we share a lot of music back and forth. We like a lot of similar stuff, but we also like a lot of different things and trust each other's musical taste. So he had sent me this, and I thought that he was sending it to me to recommend the music. So I started listening to the record. I fall in love with it. It was like my favorite album of the year that year. No lie. It was my favorite album of the year that year. And I bought it on vinyl. It was kind of hard to get. It took a little while to get here, all that sort of stuff, but it's fantastic. And the cover art is really cool. It's like a guy in a suit with no head with like green smoke coming out. I don't know. It's hard to describe if you're listening online, but you should go watch us on YouTube. Then you see all these covers. You know what I'm saying? So check it out. I'm gonna post some of these on social this week too. And we can talk about record covers. It'll be super fun. Good old music nerd talk and stuff. Here's the next one that I love. This is Def Leppard Hysteria. You're probably familiar with it. I talk about it all the time. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. But this record art is just amazing. And this was like, it's one of those, like back in the day, this record came out in 87. They worked on this record a really long time. But this artwork, it was back when people were like, it was not digital. They were like putting this stuff together. And I don't know anything about that. So I don't even know what I'm talking about really. But I know it wasn't on a computer. I know that much because I've watched way too many like documentaries and listened to way too many podcasts about the history of Def Leppard Hysteria, and I'm proud to say it. I'm not embarrassed at all. But this is incredible album art. It's cool. It's scary. I think I got this on a cassette tape when I was a kid, and my parents probably didn't like that artwork. I think I remember my mom like checking it out and making sure there wasn't anything wrong with that record because I was like in fourth grade, I think, when I bought it. next one is TV on the Radio, great Brooklyn band. This record, Seeds is the name of this record. It's way up there for me. One of the reasons I love this artwork, one, it's just cool. It's just cool art, and I hope that you're seeing it, on YouTube or whatever. But it comes with this little thing inside of it. It's like and I don't even know if this is going to come across on video, but it comes with this little thing inside of it, and you it's like a piece of plastic, and it's like slotted sort of, and you like move it back and forth across the cover of the album, and the album art like moves. It's crazy. And I love when they do stuff like that with vinyl that kind of makes the artwork sort of come alive. But there's a lot to love about this record. It's as colorful and vibrant as the record itself. And I always love kind of when that's the vibe, it sort of matches the vibe and all that. So next, I've just got a couple more. I just pulled 5 of these, but I love a lot of Radiohead albums, but Hail to the Thief is probably my favorite record art. Stanley Donwood does all of the Radiohead artwork, and the story that I have read before was that Stanley Donwood and Tom York from Radiohead were like college roommates, and when they were in like art school or music school or whatever, and he just always had done these. And so to my knowledge, every Radiohead t-shirt, record cover, poster, like everything has always been done by Stanley Donwood, and he has a great website with a lot of his art on it and stuff as well. But I just love all the artwork from this Hail to the Thief album. You can tell it's so intricate. It's like all these little things with words on them. They're like license plate size sort of things. I don't know. That's maybe a bad way to describe it, but it's really, really cool. Really, really beautiful. And last but not least, Pearl Jam, Lightning Bolt, which is not maybe if you're a fan, the record, but like it's not like a famous Pearl Jam. It's not like Pearl Jam 10 or Versus or one of the well-known Pearl Jam albums. But I think the artwork to this, when this record came out, I was captivated by the cover of it, and inside the vinyl there's all these stickers, and I'm a sticker dude. I like stickers on my laptop covers and all that sort of stuff, and I just can't bring myself to peel these stickers off of this album. It's just so cool that it's in the record, and so I just think it's cool, and I can't bring myself to do it. So anyway, those are 5 records I love. I'm going to post on social this week, and let's talk about record art that we love. But in honor of my friend being on the podcast today, my record of the week can't be anything but Weezer Blue. And you're going to hear a story that Jonathan tells about his love for this album. Obviously, there's massive hits on this, Buddy Holly and Undone, the Sweater Song, and Say It Ain't So. This was a pretty huge record. And Rick Ocasek from The Cars, which I'm the only reason I always pronounce his name wrong. I'm probably saying it wrong right now. I think I said it wrong in the episode because we talked a little bit about this. But from The Cars produced this record, and it's a stellar album. If you're young and you don't know what this is, you need to go figure it out and listen to it. So on the show today, like I said, my friend Mr. Jonathan Maloney, he's an art director and designer from Atlanta, Georgia, around the area there. Up here where I live, and he's designed for a ton of great companies and nonprofits. He does a lot of work with 12 Stone Church here just outside the city. He's also a part of a collective of guys called the Brightful Studio. Jonathan and the Brightful Studio did the design work for the MYFI podcast, all the logos and animations and all that sort of stuff. And so you can check out their work at thebrightfulstudio.com, see some other stuff that Jonathan's done as well. And then his social handle is just at Jonathan Maloney. He is a fantastic friend and a fantastic human being, and we have a great conversation. We literally could talk for hours, and we do often about cool music and share a lot of cool music. And so I hope you enjoy this super fun conversation I got to have with my dear friend, Jonathan Maloney. What's up, Jonathan Maloney? How are you?
How are you, man? I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's hard to not act like I haven't seen you in the last week because we're friends and stuff.
I know. And you're Lee?
Yeah, I'm Lee. Nice to meet you.
Cool. It's nice to meet you too.
This is
very nice to meet you.
Honestly, it's cool. Like I've gotten to interview like a few close friends. Jonathan's one of my close friends. Mentioned that in the intro, but and that he designed the logo and the brand for MYFI. So thanks, bro. Man,
I tell you all the time. It's like A, I love you, so I'm more than glad to do all this stuff. And then B, I'm like an actual fan of the podcast. So it makes me feel a little weird because I feel like the caliber of guests for you has just been like going like sky high, and then you're like, and Jonathan, my friend, he draws.
Yeah. No,
But dude, I'm so pumped, dude. I sincerely, I say this all the time, but like I sincerely listen to the podcast and I sincerely love it. So I'm stoked to be here.
I love it, man. I appreciate it. And
yeah, man,
obviously we have, I don't know, like there's times I feel like we have really similar taste in music, but there's also like bands that like we legitimately like that the other one doesn't like. And
absolutely.
Like have other friends like that, or anybody who listens has friends like that, where I have people like Jonathan. I respect your musical opinion so much, and then there's bands I go, well, but why don't you like Pearl Jam, dude?
All right, dude. It's like I feel like we have an age gap of about what, like 8 years,
5 years, 8 years.
Yeah,
I don't know, something like that.
So it's like you're like there are times where I forget that, and then you'll be like talking about like Pearl Jam or like I mean, a band like that, and I'm like, yeah, I respect them, but I wasn't really there, right?
Yeah,
like I was there, but like I mean, we can jump into this, but it's like my wife grew up on like 90s, and she loves it, and she'll like ask me questions about bands from the 90s all the time, and I'm like, yeah, I'm sure it was great, but like my parents became Christians in the like 80s and 90s, and there was like some rule where like you just didn't listen to secular music at all. So like I literally had no access to it. So like I understand the importance of all those bands now, but it's like I just yeah. I don't know.
I grew up where my parents like were putting cassette tapes in like my Easter basket. So I got like Queensryche and Warrant like cassettes.
See, dude,
Easter
that's
basket.
foreign to me. Yeah. I literally like I remember buying do you remember going to a book fair in like elementary school?
It still happens.
Well, I took the money that my parents sent me with, and I bought this cassette tape called it was like Alvin and the Chipmunks. Oh, wait, I actually wrote this down. I didn't think I was actually going to talk about it. It's Alvin and the Chipmunks. Here's Looking at Me. Okay, so it's like oh my gosh. It was a cassette tape, and it had like 20 songs on it, and they were all like songs like Girls Just Want to Have Fun and like The Leader of the Pack, and so they were like secular songs, but like I got this thing.
It was like Kids Bob.
My guilt, like I hid this under my bed like a Playboy, like because I was like my parents are gonna find out that this isn't Christian, and I'm just gonna be in trouble. But yeah, so jokes on them though. Like I went hard once I tasted the fruits of rock and roll. So sorry to jump ahead if that was a question.
No, that's fantastic, dude. I also love like, you know, I mentioned that you do design, graphic design, digital design, and or an art director and all that. And so I always think like, you know, I love interviewing musicians, and that's primarily the guests we have on the show. But we've had, you know, Timmy, who's a mutual friend of ours, who's an animator, and my friend Robbie, who's a photographer up in the Northwest. And so I just love talking to creative people.
Episode,
yeah, because I feel like with the work you do, and I know you play guitar, and you know we're in bands and stuff growing up, but like I love having different perspective of people who are not necessarily career musicians, because I feel like your love for music is just different. And even though, you know, we all kind of grew up, you know, listening to music, that's how it starts. And, you know, whether you became a musician or something, I just love different creative people's aspects of music. But I want to get there. But first, let's go all the way back. Was the Alvin and the Chipmunks thing? Was that like the first? I mean, technically that wasn't your own money, but like, what was the first piece of music you bought, like that you chose, like you spent your hard-earned money on as a kid?
So like I was actually thinking about this question because it's like again the Alvin and the Chipmunks thing is like a core memory of mine because it literally felt dangerous. Like I was so like
that's funny. That's hilarious.
I mean, but it was like I think the first song was "Girls Just Want to Have Fun," and like when I say I listened to that like nonstop, like I did, and it was just this taste of like the other side. But I think. I'm sorry,
dude. That's just funny.
No, it was wonderful. This was kind of my money. So I grew up in Georgia, And Lake Lanier Islands was this big water park thing. And I want to say I was in like 7th grade, and there used to be a Taco Bell. There used to be a Taco Bell in the water park, and me and my buddy, who like we played music together later on and all this stuff. Like I had money to buy either me food, or if he wanted food, I would have to buy him food. Like I had like $5. So he was like, listen, if you give me that $5, I will give you the Foo Fighters album Color and Shape.
Okay.
So
that's
like
a good trade
so
for
like
$5.
Oh, bro. And I had no idea, because again, up until that point, I really still wasn't allowed to listen to like secular music. So it's like when we did that, like that was technically like that feels like a legitimate first album. Because once I heard that, dude, I was like, I listened to that thing
How old
constantly. I want to say I was in 7th grade. So like
12, 13.
13, 12. Yeah. It was like that moment of my life is when I started to really lead into music and just every band I could possibly get my angers on. But I think I think it was Color and the Shape.
Yeah.
I think.
What came after that? Like, what was the waterfall? What did that start?
I mean,
what records, what bands?
Okay, so you know me, and I promised myself I wouldn't talk too much about Weezer, because I find myself. You can always know.
I made Weezer Record of the Week in honor of you.
Blue
this week. Yes, Blue is the record.
Blue.
Of the week.
Let's go.
Hold on, I got it right here. I showed it in the show opening too, but I just want you to know how legit I am. Like I have it.
Such
right
a
here.
Beautiful. Dude, I listen. So you can always tell when I've had a little bit too much to drink, because I'll start to talk more and more about that band, because I like get so passionate about them, and it's like what? Okay, when I was learning how to play guitar in about like 8th grade, like 7th, 8th grade, and the whole reason I wanted to learn guitar was to like learn like a Dave Matthews song, so like the girls at
nice.
church camp might like hiss me. And I didn't even like I hated Dave Matthews, but like in my head I'm like, dude, I'm gonna learn how to play Crash, and like I'm gonna have to like push these girls off of me. So this guy was teaching me how to play guitar from our church, and I think like we were in his basement, and he was talking about a Violent Femmes song. And I think the reason he was talking about it is because there was a Violent Femmes song that he knew was easy, so he was going to use it to help me learn.
Blister in the Sun, guaranteed.
Probably, which is such a sick song. Like I wish, I love them, but so like he had this big shelf of like cassettes, and they were like organized and alphabetized, and it was beautiful. And he was like, well, it's not here. So he opens this like junk drawer, and there was cassette tapes everywhere. And I looked down, and I remember this so clearly. Like the Weezer Blue album was like right there. And I look, and I'm like, those are the 4 most normal looking dudes I've ever seen in my entire life. So in my head, I'm like, I'm sure this is some like gospel group or like something. Like there's no way this is a rock and roll. And like I was this chunky kid with a speech impediment, and like I didn't like myself. And every time I would think of myself in the future, I was like, oh, that's bad news. Like I'm not gonna get I'm gonna get worse, obviously, because that's so I see this tape, and I'm like, there's no way this is good. But something in me was like, take that tape, or ask if you can take that tape. And I'm like, can I have this? And he's like, yeah, I think they're a one-hit wonder, which now I think about that, and I get so pissed, because I'm like, no, this whole album's like golden. So like I remember putting the tape in when I got home, and like the first song of that album is My Name Is Jonas, and the first, like the introduction is just an acoustic pick, and then it explodes into our chords. Yeah. And I hate when people say like, oh, this band like saved my life and this and this and this, but like knowing that these 4 normal looking white dudes like rocked so hard, yeah. I was like, I have a chance. I make a joke. I'm like, Jesus, Weezer, and antidepressants saved my life. like without the in that order. But it's like that. I mean, like that album, man. It shifted the way I saw the world, and like all of a sudden, I was like, I had this confidence I had never had.
Yeah, that's
which
super
sounds
cool.
so over the top, but it was like, dude, I
I
love
think
that
that
band.
was well, I think that's amazing, by the way. I love like rich stories. Like, and honestly, like we've talked a lot. I don't know that you've ever told me like the depth of that. And
Yeah.
I think that was part of what was so cool about some of the music in the 90s. Like, our age difference, is I grew up in hair metal, and I thought like the hair metal thing was like the guys dressed up like superheroes. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
they
Yeah.
were in like costumes and makeup, and it was like, this is fascinating because they looked like they were out of comic books. It was like,
Yeah.
I would love to be a superhero like this, and you could dress up like them for Halloween. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
It was like,
Like you can make toys like of
yeah,
them.
but
Yeah.
something came about in the early 90s, with grunge, but even like deeper than that was just like all the alternative bands that came out. Like, I wouldn't call Weezer a grunge band or Smashing Pumpkins necessarily a grunge band. Like, but it was just like alternative music, but it became like relatable in a sense, and like
Yes.
attainable in a sense.
Yeah.
And so it was really like eye opening. And I think that was the explosion of a lot of kids playing music because it felt
Yeah.
attainable.
Well, all of a sudden, like it was that like ebb and flow. It's like it was this big, shiny, untouchable music scene that only superheroes were a part of. And in response to that was a bunch of like dirty, gross kids who were like, no, like let's just play power chords and like wear like plaid.
Well, there was nothing
Like
since punk rock, since like late 70s, early
right.
80s, like Ramones, you
Yeah.
know, punk rock that was accessible like that you could play. Even like the hair metal stuff it was just, or the 80s rock stuff. There was so much talent in it, and not that there wasn't in the 90s, but there was so much musical virtuosity in it. It was
Absolutely.
really hard to play. And so
Yeah,
like when that
absolutely.
stuff came along, it was like, oh gosh, like I can learn this in a couple of weeks instead of like trying to play this solo from, this Motley
Yeah.
Crue song over and over, and I still can't figure it out, whatever.
Yeah.
And so that was, but I love that it's on like a personal level, something different, for
Oh
you.
yeah.
That's pretty huge.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah.
What came after that, man? Like, what were the bands after Weezer that obviously cracked the door open?
Yeah, so that really opened. That really just, again, it sounds over romanticized and so dumb, but it's like it gave me this confidence. I was a weird kid, and then all of a sudden, like I'm a weird kid, and then like weird kids like find each other, right? So like
Yeah.
I found this group of kids who, like, back in the day, it was like 4 or 5 of us who were like into this music scene, right? So Weezer was the gateway to everything else, and I still feel dumb calling it this, but it's like people called it emo, right?
Yeah.
Like emo became like a kind of bad word because like there's so many different versions of it. Like some people think like, oh, emo, that's like Fall Out Boy and like My Chemical Romance, and they wear eye makeup and this and this and this. But like there was a scene before that of, again, just like normal dudes just wearing thrift store shirts and jeans and just playing really authentic raw punk rock. The Get Up Kids was one of the first albums I like really was like flabbergasted by, because I'm like, this recording sounds like garbage. Like it sounds like somebody recorded this album in like a trash can, and it was 4 Minute Mile. So that was their first album, which that led me to, back in the day, like you know this, but there was a season where like the record label that you were on meant more than anything else.
Man. Yeah.
So like I found Vagrant Records, and so anytime I would see Vagrant Records on any album, I would buy the album no matter what. So this was pre-internet. This was like 99. So the Get Up Kids I freaking loved. Saves the Day was one of my like top 3 albums of all time, is Through Being Cool. And again, it's funny because now I'm making this connection while we talk. Like the cover of Through Being Cool is, again, 4, 5 average lower middle class white kids on a sofa, and it's like they look like me. Like they look like me.
Yeah.
And it's just, I just fell in love with authenticity, raw music, and like punk rock. Yeah, dude.
That's interesting. I wonder how much of our like love for certain artists has to do with one of two things. Either we find music that's relatable to us, or we find music that creates a world we want to be a part of. You know what I'm saying? It seems like it's like one of two things. Like that's what that outlandish rock and roll of the 80s was definitely something I didn't identify with, but I wanted to be a part of. I thought it was like, I can't imagine these people not having fun all the time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then the 90s come around, it's like, oh, like you said, it's attainable, you know, and I still maybe even quantify that. It's like either a culture, man, I would like to be a part of that, or it's something that I identify with. I don't know. That's deep.
We're getting deep,
baby.
Well, I mean, let's do it. No, I just like, again, it was almost like, I like this, again, this was before internet. So like, there was no chat rooms, like there were chat rooms after, like very close after, but like, I don't remember how I connected with so many people, or actually not a lot, but like we were so connected through the music that we listened to, but like we all found it individually. Maybe that was like a compilation. Like I remember us talking once, I'm like, did bands you like used to do like compilations? And you're like, no. And I'm like, oh, because the bands that you love, like from the 80s and stuff, like they had like $1 billion, budgets. Like these bands would get together and say like, let's release a comp so that at least we can get one song into Hot Topic or Sam Cutie.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't remember how, but it was community.
Yeah, I think that was always a part of the punk rock scene, though. Like I think in the 80s, that was kind of a thing. And then skate culture perpetuated that with punk rock music.
Very much so.
You know, if you haven't seen that Tony Hawk documentary that's on HBO,
it's great.
Oh my gosh, it's so cool the way they talk about the punk scene and them making the videotapes and all that sort of stuff.
Love it.
Do you remember, well, I guess like how old were you when you started doing digital design stuff? We've never talked about that.
So I started graphic design like super unofficially. I legally downloaded Photoshop in the 11th grade. If it makes Adobe feel better, I've paid for it for the last 18 years. Yeah, we're good.
I think Adobe's doing fine.
And I think they know. They're not dumb. I think I would literally design fake album artwork, and I would design show posters for the bands that were in my scene.
Nice.
I remember one year, I think I was in like 10th grade, and we did a show flyer for my band. And all I remember is putting like Suzanne Live. So our band name was Suzanne. And then a picture of the Saved by the Bell cast, and then like when, where, and how, or whatever. And we printed 300. And I remember just walking through the halls and throwing them like behind us. So it was like just littering the hallways with this like awful poster, and like 12 people ended up coming. But like that was my first like, oh, I want to, like, half of the reason I love being in a band is because I get to do like the flyers and the album artwork and stuff like that. So so probably 11th grade, so 2001.
Was there like a record? Do you remember like I guess when you were falling in love with obviously the record art connected with you when you saw people like you. Yeah. But was there art that you remember on early records that you're like, that's amazing artwork?
To this day, my favorite album cover of all time, and this always shocks people, but Andrew WK, I Get Wet, right?
Oh yeah.
It's I love that album. But the album cover is just a black background, really thick, bold text that says Andrew WK, and then a close-up shot of him, and his nose is just gushing blood. Okay?
I remember.
So, it's phenomenal. And the reason I love that album artwork so much is because it was released in, I think, like 2001, 2002. Pop music, every pop album, so like Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, like Ricky Iglesias, like all of them, every album art was just a beautiful shot of them, right? Yeah. So Andrew's response to all these beautiful pop like albums with these close-ups of their face and these beautiful gowns and stuff is his face just freaking destroyed. and he's greasy and gross. And I'm like, that is the most punk rock, like minimal punk rock album cover in the world. And I just, in context of when it came out, I still think it was so rad. Like, such a move. Yeah.
It is funny. Like, I've never thought about what you said about like Christina Aguilera, Enrique Iglesias, Britney Spears, all these, like it was very pop oriented. Like the late 90s, early 2000s was like the big deal Swedish pop, kind of thing. Swedish songwriters, all that sort of stuff. And I saw a meme the other day that was talking about the early 80s, and the meme just said, if they hit this certain lean on the cover of the record, like it was going to be a great record. And it was like all the early 80s, like R&B, like Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie and stuff. So it's funny to me, and you probably notice more than I would, but there's like seasons, I guess, that album art like looks the same, which is interesting to me.
Yeah. And this is, I'm not going on a record, but Lady Gaga released an album, I think like 2 years ago. And every time I'm at the record shop, every single time I'm flipping through and I see this album artwork, and I don't know, I never remember it's her, but it's this like bright pink, like black metal logo on this like lime
Chromatica
green
record. Yeah.
Bro, and every time I'm like, what is this? And I'm like, Lady Gaga, like, what? So, like, I think, right? Like, I'm like, I don't, but it's like, when you go against the grain, especially nowadays, because everybody's releasing art, and art always starts to look the same after a while, and then you have somebody who breaks the pattern, but like, I just always love the albums that are like, it's going to be hard to get this approved, but I promise you, like, this album artwork will stick out greatly. Yeah.
It's fun. That's funny, too, because I was talking to, it may have been a conversation we were having, but I know I've talked to a couple of guys who are in marketing in the record industry and, or management, one of the two, talking about how now it's, even with the pressing of vinyl, resurging and all that sort of stuff, because streaming is the way that, most people consume music nowadays. And the title of the artist and the title of the record is always next to the artwork on our devices.
That was me. Yeah.
So it's completely unnecessary to put the artist and the album title on the artwork now. So it's almost like typography, at least as a part of album art. The necessity is not there. It doesn't mean it's not applicable or interesting.
Right.
It just, the necessities, you used to have to put that on there because that's how people would know it was you.
Yeah.
Now that's completely different. Like, does that like open up options for you as a designer when you're working on stuff, or does that like, because I know it's the same in a lot of digital media now, because there's typography everywhere, and the artwork you work on is on apps that have text all around it. So like, is that changing the way that you design stuff, or?
See, I don't. So I actually feel the industry is starting to move again to the point of like putting text on albums. So it's like, so the past, like, I would say like 9 years, like we said, like people are like, well, we don't need the name of the band on there because it's always in context to like August Burns Red album name, right?
Yeah.
So like you're always having the name with the album cover. Now with the vinyl resurgence, this is all speculation, but like I feel like we're slowly moving back to like text on an album. Which I could be wrong, but I'm starting to be like, I think I'm seeing more and more text. Going back to your question though, like when I'm designing, I don't think of text as text and then like a picture as an object. Like I think of them all as objects. So if this cover needs an additional object that is the text, I'm going to add it. Like I bow to the needs of the project, which sounds hippie as crap, but like I do enjoy the fact that I'm not chained to having to put copy on things. But I'm also overjoyed when I do get to like purposefully use text as an object. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Totally. And I love that. I agree. I think that it's because of vinyl. It's like just people aren't thinking about it the same way as they did maybe over
Yeah.
the last decade where streaming had blown up. But then I see stuff like this week or last week, the Taylor Swift record drops. And so she has like artwork that's on Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff. And then there's 4 vinyl variants. I don't know. Have you seen?
I know. Well,
not just the vinyl itself, but the covers. Like
and the inside booklet. So
they're all different too.
So I actually I'm obsessed with this new album.
To me, that's like a huge value on design. Where over the last like 9 or 10 years, it was like, hey, can you give me a 3,000 by 3,000 square and leave me alone?
Yeah, you know, I love the most about it. It's like you can think that like Taylor's just doing that for like a money grab. But if you think about it through the lens of like a Taylor Swift fan, you're literally gifting them an opportunity to like have more content. Like, yeah. And I just think so I actually love that album. I have a lot of friends who don't, but like even the artwork, man, it's like going back to like, oh, it's not just it's not just one image. It's like like she not only has the title of the album on it, but like she has the track listing, and it's like it's just so it's just so cool, man. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of when an artist can do big stuff like that.
Yeah, because it's not. I mean, it's not easy, especially nowadays. But I think she moved like 1.5 million units week 1, which is like the most a record sold in like 5 years or something. And I mean, it's not just her. I mean, and it's not like we tend to talk about like physical units of music with older artists who are like reissuing things or something. But like, man, the Harry Styles record sold big. The last Adele record sold huge. Like this Charlie Puth album I heard is selling great. Like, you know, there's a lot of, you know, modern pop artists who are doing that too. And I agree with you. It's funny if you only buy like one variant of the Taylor Swift album, I think that like when you listen to it, at least for me, like I know what the cover of a record looks like when I listen to it. So I associate it with that visual. And that's like super important to me, you know? And there are things like as blatant as like Weezer Blue or Metallica, the Black Album, that we like literally refer to them. They're like known not by the name, but by the like, even though that is the name of the record, but it's like they're associated with it was so bold what they did art wise. It defined the record. Like Metallica could not call that record anything but the Black Album. You know, Weezer couldn't call it. It's the Blue record. And even what's the Green album too, right?
Yeah. So Weezer has self-titled records, and on paper they are just called Weezer, right? Yeah. But you have the Blue album, you have the Green album, you have the Red album, Black album, Teal album, and that's it. So like the lore of that band is just incredible. Yeah. But yeah. Again, I'm holding myself back, but yeah.
No, I get it. I get it though, dude. That's awesome. What are some records that have come out recently that you love the record, but you also love the artwork maybe?
Man, when we went into quarantine, like I remember up until that point, like I was having a lot of trouble, like finding new music. Right. I would just find myself going to bands that I already knew and records that I already knew. And I was like, I just could not find new music whatsoever. For whatever reason, during quarantine, it was like all of a sudden I started to like just have time to like discover again. And Apple Music is the freaking best. Like, I don't feel like that those curated lists and stuff are every Friday I just go through and just but that was the beginning of me just diving into like a lot of new stuff. The first album I really fell in love with was Low. The band is called Low, and the I wrote it down because I forgot what the actual album was called. Hold up. it, hold up. This is why people listen to podcasts, right? Low, and the album's called Double Negative, and it's a pink cover, and it's like a black chip. And it sounds like your headphones are about to explode because the sound production is bananas, and it's just this chippy, computery, like, it's just fantastic, and that just opened my brain. And I was like, I want more. Like, I want more new. I mean, Low has been a band for a very long time, but that album released in like 2018. There's this band called Origami Angel, and I think I sent it to you, but I don't think you listened to it because I don't think it's your lane. But it's like they have an album called Gammy Gang, which might be a term for something bad. I don't know, but it's these kids. This is the only way I can explain it. It's like these kids with ADHD who ate a bunch of candy, found their dad's like Get Up Kids albums, and like wrote and played music like that. It's like they play with speed and intensity that only like a 20-year-old kid can. It's just, the whole album is just nonstop. Like it is whatever the evolution is from the music I loved, and now these kids finding their dad's albums. It's phenomenal. Like it's just fast and awesome.
Sounds kind of like you listen to Black Midi.
I'm not super familiar now.
I might be that too, and I'm going to listen to the Origami Angel record. I don't remember you sending me that, honestly.
Probably
did.
It starts with this like trap, like 808, and you're like, I don't know what's happening, and then this 808 turns into this palm muted, like, just, again, it's just this ferocious, like, messy, beautiful punk rock.
There was a few bands that came out like that around that time, or that like came into their prime, I guess, like 2018, 2019, like Parquet Courts and there's this other band that's I'm gonna have to look them up.
I just love that there's a
coastal something rolling something.
I don't know.
I know, dude. It's reminding me of this group of bands that I got into around that time. Anyway.
Yeah, and then there's a band called The Dirty Nil.
Yep.
And the
you
album,
sent me that.
I was obsessed with that album. It's this like tongue-in-cheek rock and roll album that's like they have a song called like Doom Boy, and it's basically him like explaining why he's such a dangerous rock star. Like, he says like, I listen to black metal, and I worship Satan, and he's like, and we can listen to these songs in my Dodge Caravan, and then at the end of the song he's like, oh, it's my mom's Dodge Caravan. It's just a fantastic album.
Wow.
And the cover is like this stuffed dog head, and it's the album name is F Art, but it's the F word art. Yeah. It's one of those. But I will say, man, like, besides Def Cab for Cutie released an album this year, which is phenomenal. It's the loudest Def Cab for Cutie album, and it's just great. But like, the newest band I've been obsessed with is Maeson. It's Maeson, and he released an album called Never Had to Leave. That's
a great record.
Oh, bro, I am like, it's getting pressed in January, and I'm so thrilled. But it's just this southern, I don't even know how to explain it. It's this like bluesy, like, it's about this dude's relationship with Jesus, and like, he grew up, and his like dad was a pastor, and he's having all these like spiritual conversations based in like a secular. It's beautiful, man. Like, the
cover's amazing.
That I did
the like dark red skull thing.
With a person playing guitar. I think he did that. I think he made that with artificial intelligence. I was actually going to Google that, because I was looking at it, and I'm like, I bet you that's what it did, because this is a weird image.
Yeah.
But dude, yeah, I love that album so much.
That's a whole nother conversation. It's like all the AI design, AI music creation. Like, it's crazy, man.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It is.
It is funny to me, though. There's something that'll never be replaced with album art. And I don't know, I'm sure that you've seen, documentaries about album art or short films that people have made about creating album art. But one of my favorite, and I couldn't even name you a song off this record. I have a ton of respect for John Mayer, but I'm not like a super fan of him.
I know what you're about to say.
I'm just not super familiar. But there was a documentary that was made about the Born and Raised John Mayer record, which I remember being a really good record. I don't like regularly listen to his stuff a ton, so I'm not super familiar with any songs on it. But that album art and the record was great, but the album art was created by this guy by hand. And I forgot the name of, there was a certain technique, that they used to create it, but it's very like pharmacy art from the 20s sort of a vibe.
It's literally, it's like lettering, but like it's the most intricate, like if you zoom into it, you're going to find a new detail, and it's beautifully done, and it's all handmade. Crazy. Which I consider myself an artist, but if you put me against someone like that, I'm like, nah, man, I'm not an artist. Like you are, like, because that stuff blows my mind.
Yeah, but I know you're a great artist. I know that part of the great thing about digital design is not just that it's digital, and so you can do crazy things with it, but that you can bring in other media, photography and physical things, and then like bring that into the digital landscape and, really get crazy with it. And I think there's so much interesting art out there. But for me, what grabs my eye is probably the simpler it is, the more it catches. And I don't know if there's like even theories around like record art now that make you stand out on digital platforms. Like, have you had conversations with anybody about that?
Yes and no. I mean, there was that. Again, it's more about what's going on now and just kind of maybe finding your own space. Like, we have a mutual friend who works in marketing, who says like, when they zig, you zag. So like it's the same concept as like Weezer's Blue album. It came out in a sea of like concept heavy albums, right? Like you have Nevermind and all, just everything has a theme, and they're like, hey, let's just let's buy blue paper, set it up in our like friend's apartment, and just take a picture of us. And that, in comparison to everything else at the time, like it sticks out. And like, I think with digital art, I think it's the same thing. It's not about what you do. It's about like responding to what's been done, if that makes sense. I don't know if I just talked in a circle, but there's not really an answer in my head, but I get it. Just being unique and
it's great. All right.
Yeah, man.
Last thing. And I think I know 3 favorite records. I'm
going to surprise you.
Are you?
Oh man. Well, no, I'm not. Cause I would not be able to sleep tonight if I lied about it. Cause this is very important to me. 3, starting with 3, and the order is very important. 3 is Further Seems Forever. The Moon Is Down.
Nice.
The first time I listened to that, I played guitar, but like I heard this album and I'm like, oh, I don't even know how they're doing what they're doing, like musically, because you listen to it and it's smart. Like it's meticulous and smart. And I was so used to just like messy power chords and leave the E open. But when I first heard them, it was on a compilation. I think it was the Emo Diaries, like version 4, which sounds awesome. But like, I was obsessed with like, dude, like these dudes are scientists. And just that whole album and just the lore of the album, like Chris Carrabba was the singer. He left before it was even out. So they still released it. It was just a whole thing. I actually just got the 20-year anniversary record or vinyl in the mail yesterday, and it's great.
Oh, nice.
Number 2 is, yeah, dude, it's awesome. Number 2 is Jimmy Eat World Clarity. It was their album after their first album. They got signed to Capitol, and basically they got signed and then nobody did anything with them. So when they released their first album, it just kind of flopped. And so they were like, listen, let's spend every penny of the budget for this next album and just do the weirdest album of all time. Like there's like a xylophone in it. Like it's just this beautiful, it is purely them. And they literally thought it was going to be their swan song. So it just has this heart, man. And just, I when weather gets older, that's the first thing I put on. It's just such a good album. Number one is Weezer. It's a Pinkerton. That was their sophomore album, and it was in response to the Blue album. So the Blue album is this perfect pop rock record. Like you could show it to your mom, and like she would love it. And like it was very like candy. For whatever reason, Rivers, who's the singer of Weezer, he all he wanted in his entire life was to be a rock star, and he became one. And he's like, "This sucks. I don't like the attention. Like I'm getting love letters from like kids in Japan, and he's going through this thing where all of a sudden like girls want him, and so it's this. It is the first time I heard feedback in an album like on purpose. Like it was like feedback from the guitar on purpose. It was the rawest. Like they produced it. Rick Rubin, the dude from the Cars.
Oh, Rick Ocasek.
Ocasek. So he produced the Blue album. They self-produced Pinkerton. It was this vulnerable, awkward, like raw album that is said to like has kicked off the like emo movement, because it was just this terrible. It was awkward because it was so real. It was so awkward and real that Weezer didn't make any music for the next like 7 years, and he didn't even talk about the album for like 10 years because he was humiliated. It was one of those albums that like set and just grew. Dude. But yeah, dude, that was one of those bands, man.
That was my introduction to Weezer, actually. Like I remember I saw Buddy Holly on MTV, but a friend of mine, but aside from that and like Sweater Song and, like hits, I had never really gotten into them. And a friend of mine let me borrow Pinkerton on CD, and I just put it in my car, and it was one of those that like just stayed in for a while. And the record, they must have tracked it all at the same time, because it just sounds very similar from song to song. And I love records like that. And so I'm just like, oh, this is great. So I just listened to it over and over again, and I like super got into that record, but then they didn't release anything else. So I didn't get into Weezer. I just was into that record. And my favorite thing about the album was, I think Rolling Stone rated it when it first came out and gave it like a 2 out of 10, like just scathing. Like they were just mean about it. And then 20 years after, they reviewed it, and they gave it a 10 out of 10 because it became this cult classic. It's like the Blue album and Pinkerton can't live without each other, because they're such a juxtaposed like it's if you tore this dude in half, and you'd have the purest version of this and this. So you and I need to start a Weezer podcast, and no one will listen to it except for me. I would record it and then re-listen to it. So I'm like, man, I just love that band, even when I'm just talking about them. Well, dude, thank you so much. This has been a blast, man.
I love it.
Have a good one, man.
I love it.
I'll holler at you later.
Yeah, buddy. You too.
Man, we could talk forever about music and art and all things creative. I really hope you enjoyed that. Make sure to follow Jonathan if you like on social media. He's just at Jonathan Maloney everywhere. I'll put that in the show notes as well. And you can check out more of his work at brightfulstudio.com. And you can follow the Brightful Brightful Studio on Instagram as well. And I'll put all that stuff in the show notes, so you can just go click on it and check them out. Have some other cool friends who are a part of that little collective and stuff as well. So go check out their work. They're awesome. They did all the artwork, like I mentioned, for MYFI, and the animations and all the things you see on the YouTube stuff, and the name slates and all the stuff, the stickers, the hats that you've seen, that we talk about, all that sort of stuff. That's all from my friends there at the Brightful Studio, Jonathan and Timmy and Alan, and super grateful for their help. Go check out their stuff. But anyway, listen and follow MYFI, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all the stuff. Go follow us. Keep up. We have some great guests lined up for the rest of the year. And at the very end of the year, I'm going to do a bonus episode about my favorite albums of 2022. And then we can talk a little bit on social media about all the records that we've loved that have come out this year. So stay tuned, stay connected. Hope you loved the episode today. And we'll see you in a little while with a fresh new episode. Till then, have a good one.